Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest is the wonderful Billy Blue. He's an artist, he's a graphic designer, he's also a game designer, and recently released his game TLD a fantasy RPG, a rules light game that he tries to incorporate art and game design into a single product. But before I get into that, I have a few announcements. I feel like so important saying that. I'll be on Game On Expo on Phoenix, Arizona from March 15th to 17th. I'll actually be a panelist. I'm a guest, so I'll be talking about game design, my games, the history, and everything else. I'll also be at GaryCon, but there I'll be more like a civilian. I'll be just hanging out, so if you want to hang out and talk weird, I'll be on Game On Expo and GaryCon, March 15th to 17th and March 23rd to 25th. Also, if you like the show, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast, leave us a review, share with your friends, and support the show. Look at the show notes, we have a few options on how you can help us keep the show going. But let's get back to Billy. We talked about how he had this dream to become a comic artist. We talked about this kind of blessing and a curse that is being able to, write and do graphic design and art. We feel like we have to do everything, but we also don't have time to do everything. So it's kind of complicated. We talked about the use of art and rules and how RPGs can integrate those a little bit better. We talked about creative rituals. We talked about Calvin and Hobbes, and it was a very heavy talk about creativity and process and how we can explore this and use techniques to explore our desires and our passions. And it was a great episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. So let's get weird with Billy Blue. Hello, Billy. Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. And for those people who don't know who Billy Blue is and what have you been doing, can you tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, what is that you do, and if you can share just a small weird detail about yourself, maybe habits that you have, or the way you pick your clothes, or anything like this.
Yeah, that's you could probably fill up the whole show with just that part if you talk to my wife. Um, so my name is Billy. I am an RPG artist and game designer, and I usually do creepy / weird stuff, but honestly, I'm comfortable with pretty much any material. I just really I've always liked telling stories with images, and that kind of naturally led over to me trying to design my own games since I was making pictures for them anyway. So that's where I am now. I'm fortunate I've been able to work with some really, really great people, really creative people, and it's really taught me a lot about how to make a nice game, and it's fun. I'm lucky. And
Awesome. Okay.
one weird detail, sometimes I stand on the toilet to pee down into it. So I didn't think it was weird because sometimes I would stand on the toilet seat just because I was like, oh, look how high I am, and then pee. So my wife says it's weird. I just think it's fun.
Yeah.
But see, anything is weird.
That's probably dangerous too, right? Because it breaks.
Usually there's alcohol involved, so it's even more dangerous.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like anything is weird depending on your perspective, which also means nothing is weird, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, I love a story that tells like a guy goes to someone else's place and he goes to the toilet and he poops, and then he asks for the poop knife, to slice the poop so it can goes down, and the person goes, what is a poop knife? And he assumed everyone, every house had one, of course.
Of course, poop knife.
All his family must probably,
That's funny. And then he thought he was the weird one, for not having it. Yeah,
Yeah, of
exactly. That's
course.
the thing. No, people honestly, people my whole life have been telling me like you're kind of weird, and of course I never thought that about myself, but I think it's
Yeah.
just all a matter of perspective.
But have you ever felt bad for, people telling you about being weird and stuff like this?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes and no. Uh, it was for a while. It was just like I didn't get it. I didn't understand it, so I would blow it off. And then after a while, it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe there's something there, and it makes you feel a little bit self-conscious. But
Yeah.
after a while, you know, when you get old, you just stop caring sometimes.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah, for
you just,
sure.
yeah, you just become comfortable with yourself, and I think that's a really
Yeah.
important lesson that we have to learn sometimes, and sometimes it takes a long time. So now I
Oh.
love I love my weirdness because I just love who I am. Whether you think it's weird or you don't, okay, that's fine. That's on you. But I,
Yeah.
I just love life and I want to be true to myself.
Yeah, of course. But for me, I remember there was like tough times because of the taste of the stuff that we like and the way we are, and some
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
you know, playing RPGs for some people that's too nerdy, and
Yeah,
people
yeah,
don't want to get involved with you because of that.
yeah,
And when you have like 12 to you're a teenager about that, that's yeah,
yeah. They
that's
can be
terrible.
cruel. And
You
it's
know,
funny. I had a girl who I was kind of interested for a while, and we went on a few dates, and suddenly she just stopped talking to me.
yeah,
And
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and like we were cordial, we were fine, we didn't have a fight or anything, but then she just stopped talking to me, and I found out later she was talking to someone. She's like, "Oh yeah, he's nice, but do you believe he reads comic books?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"That's it? That's
yeah.
that was all it took,
That's the
you
kind of
know?"
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, okay, that's all right. That's you. That's if that's important to you, then I'm glad that came up
yeah,
early and we got that out of the way,
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. It's means something different to everyone, and I think as long as you're not hurting anyone and you're having fun, do whatever the hell you want.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned being an artist, and I remember uh seeing you I think when you were starting, and posting your art, and working uh a lot of the mockboard community, I think, too,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And now developing your own game.
Mhm.
But I'm curious about who Billy Blue is, like, outside of the tabletop RPG. What did you do with your art, with your talents and your work before you did that? Because I'm an artist too. I began this
Mhm.
like you
Mhm.
were just doing art for zines and stuff, and then I started writing. Now I mostly write instead of doing art, but I still do some art, and I use it to work with children's book illustrator. Like you told me, like you love to tell stories through
Mhm.
art,
Mhm.
and that's what I love too. Like I think illustrations can do a lot more than just decorating a book. They can be part of the narrative. They can even, maybe with RPGs, be part of the rules explaining and rules designing.
Mhm.
And I think that's something we have to explore more.
Mhm.
But I'm curious about, what did you do as an artist before? Or do you still do that while you're doing working with RPGs?
Yeah, I've kind of uh, bounced around in a lot of different interests. Um, and when I was very, very little, my dream was to work on comic books. I wanted to be a comic book artist. So that kind of started my love of art. And it's I've been interested in a lot of different fields and a lot of different types of art. But I've always been interested in that kind of an idea that an image is important to a story. And when used in the right way, like comic books or even like games, it becomes an important part of the story. So, yeah, I've had interest in comic books for a long time. I went to school and I did some studying about like concept art, and I was uh, really interested in working in like a movie studio or something like that. I think I'd still like to do that. It's just hasn't really been the direction my life has taken, but it's still an interest of mine. Um, and I've always kind of just tried any style or any genre or any field I could think of because I just love creating. And so I feel like if I could just not sleep ever, I would do that because then I would just use all of my time trying new things, whether it's trying a new tool or trying a new style or, I want to do 3D modeling or I want to do animation or I want to do, I'm the kind of person I want to do everything. Because I figure, someday I'm gonna be dead and I won't be able to try anything. So I might as well
Yeah.
draw everything and eat everything and go everywhere and just try to experience as much as I can while I'm still here. So I think that it's actually influenced my art a lot and the way I think about art. Um, one of the strengths that I have found as an artist for myself is uh, I have a lot of style versatility. So style adaptability. I can kind of change my style depending on the project, and I'm very comfortable with that. And after doing this for a few years, I realized it makes perfect sense because I'm always wanted to try new things anyway. So even if I'm not comfortable with a style, I know I can probably figure it out and be comfortable with it. And then now I'm using a new tool and having a new type of fun. So that's kind of been a really common thing throughout my art path. It's funny that you mentioned children's books because I've gotten really, really into children's books in the last couple of years, and that's actually one thing I would like to branch off into and give that a shot. Um, and I did.
Yeah, I continue
Mhm,
to have ideas and write stuff of stuff that I want to do.
mhm.
For example, that tale of the ants and the cicada. That's like
Mhm.
the ant is working, the cicada's play, and then comes winter,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah, yeah,
ant leaves the cicada to die.
yeah.
Fuck that! The cicada is making art, and art is not valuable. Fuck this thing.
That's funny.
We
Yeah,
should remake that tale and show the value of art, and I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. The
It's
art
and
should save the day.
because yeah,
Yeah,
because we learn from since being children, like art doesn't have value.
yeah, yeah. It's
That's what
something
we're
for lazy
teaching
people,
children.
or yeah,
Yeah,
like if you spend all of your time being a creative, you're either lazy or you're crazy. And that's
yeah,
the that's the kind of uh that's the kind of like ideas that people have of artists. And it's funny because it plays into the current debate about AI. And
yeah,
I think that the general notion a lot of people have of artists is already based on a misconception, you know? And so that leads to a situation where something like AI art could exist because
they think it's a talent, like a gift
yes,
from God.
yes, yes,
You,
exactly.
you,
No, no, it's not. This is
you
training.
did nothing to deserve this. You just gave this
Yes.
gift, and now
Yeah.
it's unfair if I
Yeah.
can do what It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's so stupid because it's like people will tell me in the same breath, they'll say, like, oh, you're so talented. I could never do what you do. And I say, yes, you can. You just have to draw for your whole life. That's it. That's all I did. And they say, oh, yeah, but you've been drawing since you were like 2 years old. And that's why you're so good. And I'm like, see, you just admitted it. You just said that's why I'm good. But in the same breath, you're also saying it's like some weird mystical force that like you could never
yeah,
have. No, anyone could have this. This is a skill. This is like
yeah, and
training
I
for a
don't think they
violin or
they
something. You
yeah,
just practice it every day. It's like training for a sport
yeah,
or learning a new language. Like
absolutely.
if you don't do it every
And
day,
I don't think they have to do since they were children to get good at it,
yeah, absolutely.
because I mean you don't draw 24 hours a day, like you don't. I know, like a lot of artists, like I know I'm not perfect, I'm not like as good, but I draw pretty well, and I don't draw every day all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
With practice, because I drew a lot as a kid, man. Like if you take this, I want to learn this,
Hmm.
and you dedicate some time to it, you can get really good.
Yeah.
Because when we're like drawing as a kid, we're not no worried about learning. we're not studying, we're not like copying,
Yeah.
and taking that with an intention to learn. When you
Hmm.
do with that focus, you can learn like much faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Even if
and I
you
think
just do
it's
it
all
every now and
about
then.
that
Yeah.
thing about that tale about the ant and the cicada. It's all about productivity. It's
Hmm.
not about art. It's not about
Yeah.
creativity and like the value of the human expression. Like you have to work. And AI, it's not about making art. It's about productivity. It's not
Yeah.
about making. It's
Yeah.
not AI art
It's not
to begin
creativity, it's
with.
productivity.
It's not AI art.
Yeah.
It's generativity.
Yeah.
AI, it's image.
Yeah.
They're generating an image.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not fucking art.
It's production, it's not creativity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really frustrating because it's based on a misconception about what art means and therefore what it means to be an artist. And one of the really most frustrating parts about it is when people who have almost zero background in art tell me what it means to be an artist and why I'm wrong about what I think about what art means. And it's like, I've done this my whole life, and you picked it up.
And it's not only you,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. And it's
like
like, well, you,
scholars about this.
yeah, like people will pick up a tool and suddenly have a power that they didn't have before. And then they turn around to someone like me who trained that tool, and they'll tell me, oh, well, you think this, or you think that, or you're a gatekeeper. And it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You just walked in the room 10 seconds ago. You know? I wouldn't walk into my mechanic and be like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just trying to gatekeep. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, he
But
does
I
this
mean,
every day, you know?
it's
Yeah.
it's for me. It's like going to a pizza and ordering a pizza and
Uh,
getting. I made this pizza. No,
yes,
you
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
You ordered the
You
pizza.
ordered the pizza,
You
yeah.
didn't make the
You
pizza.
didn't make anything,
Yeah.
yeah. And I tell people
Yeah.
when they ask me about AI, I say, like, using that tool does not make you an artist. You are closer to an art director than anything because you gave commands and you got a result. That's it. That's not what artists do, and that's part of the
Yeah.
misconception. Like, it makes
Yeah.
sense that if
It's
you,
it's like the people that
uh,
commission you a piece of art.
yeah.
It's the artist, and
It,
commission you make the art. Yeah.
you see,
It's
that's
the
the
same.
funny.
It's that.
That's the funny thing, yeah. Because if a person commissioned me and gave me money and I gave them art and they turned around and said, "Look at this thing I have created," everyone would shoot them down and say, "No, that's not your work. You're stealing. You have to
Yeah.
give credit. You have to give credit to the person who
Yeah.
created it." But now suddenly, because you can push some buttons and adjust some, whatever, now suddenly you're allowed to call yourself an artist. No, that's because you don't understand what creation even means. You don't even understand what creativity
Yeah.
means because you gatekeeped yourself out of art because you told yourself, oh, it's a God-given talent, or oh, I could never do that. And it's like, no, you just have to pick
Yeah.
up the pencil and
It's
move it around.
self-damaging. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
self-limiting, and now there's a tool that suddenly removes that limit with none of the work, you know? And
Yeah.
and don't friggin' at me, you nerds, about how it's more than one button, all right? I know that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's one big AI
Yeah.
button and you push it. What I'm saying is it took the skills of millions of people and put all of that power and knowledge into what is essentially a button for you to push, you know? You can push one
Yeah.
thing and get a piece of AI art. Like, that's just a
Yeah.
fact. Maybe you have to fine
You
tune
can
it after,
twinkle
but
it.
you can tweak
Yeah.
it. But yeah, exactly. Like, there
Yeah.
is no
But you gave up.
brush.
You give up a lot of control and intention. You don't
Yes.
control the output.
Yes.
A lot of the details they put there that if the artist is making,
Yeah.
they have all the intention, they have
Yes.
details, they are telling a
Yes.
story, they
Yes.
are making a composition that has a lot of symbology
Yes.
behind that. When you use AI, you give up all that.
Yeah.
You have no control
Yes.
really of what's going on. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's funny because someone will say, like, no, you don't understand. It took me hours to fine tune this image.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it only took you hours because the tools you're using are still so primitive, you know? AI generators are very new. So it
Yeah.
wasn't because it took you hours of applying your learned skill to create exactly the effect you wanted. It's because your tools are still clunky. And in next week, when they can streamline those tools, it will now take you less time. Not because you got better, because your tool got better. And that is not
No.
the way art is. It's no matter what brush I pick up, it does not make me a better painter. You know, I can
Yeah.
use a cheap brush and it makes my job harder, but that's not the same as picking up a different brush and it doing the work for me, you know? And that's
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people, especially the people who say, "Oh, it's just a tool. It's just a tool." And no, it's not, because there is no other tool that actually creates ideas for me. And that's what AI is doing. You tell it, draw
Yeah.
me a picture of a cat. It just made a
I,
thousand different decisions because you didn't specify them. And that's not what a paintbrush does. That's not what Photoshop does. That's not what a pencil does. There's no tool out there
yeah.
that creates the ideas for
Yeah.
you, unless it's a
Yeah.
plagiarism, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, let's move on from this.
yeah.
Otherwise,
We could be here all day.
we'll be
Yeah,
chatting about this
yeah, yeah,
all day.
yeah.
So, really, one of the themes of the podcast is the weird, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have this positive attitude to weird,
Mm-hmm.
and we say weird is the new
Yeah,
wonderful.
absolutely. Weird is not
Uh,
wonderful.
but I'd like to ask you, what is weird for you? How would you define that? And you know what? Before that, we're talking about before we got derailed about the AI thing. We are talking about how you want to do it all, and like you research everything, you try new things, and you wouldn't take advantage. Like if you could not sleep, you wouldn't sleep, and I kind of feel that too. And they have this new term about some kind of procrastination, that you don't go to sleep when you should. And I
Hmm.
kind of feel that because it's one of the moments I have by myself, that I can maybe watch something that I want, so study something. And I feel like that I want to do everything too, but I also feel the anxiety of not doing those things that I could be doing.
Hmm.
Do
Hmm.
you feel something like that too?
Absolutely. There's a big kind of a contradiction between I want to do everything, and also no matter what I do, I'm usually nervous that I'm doing it wrong, or I'm not doing the right thing. So it's like it's
Yeah.
funny because you're always busy, 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 but then in the back of your head there's this voice that says, like, you know, it says, yeah, but, and then insert your own insecurity there. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah, I definitely feel, I think honestly part of my love of trying new styles was actually born out of a fear and an insecurity that I wasn't good enough. So I figured, you know, subconsciously, I figured, like, if you're not going to be really, really good enough, basically, then just get good at a lot of things so you have a lot of different tools. And so that will make a lot of different opportunities for you. So I think that it's kind of funny because in a way I pulled a strength out of a weakness by just saying
Yeah.
then just get good at a lot of stuff. And fast forward a bunch of years, and now I feel very, very comfortable with a lot of different things, to the point where people
That's
will
awesome.
often look at my work and they will think it's different people doing it, because
Yeah.
I can do the Mark Borg style. I can do like children's literature like style, very, very friendly, colorful, very family friendly.
Yeah.
I did a project, uh, still to be released, but it was like in a 1990s Tim Bradstreet style. Like I can do like the painted 5e style, like and it's all because it started with that original fear, of like you're not good enough, you're not doing the right thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always hard, and I feel like that's too, like exploring new things, and now finding writing and game designing, and you have been exploring
Hmm.
this now too.
Hmm.
Yeah. But getting to the question, and then I'll ask you about how this transition. No, let's go there. Like, well, how is this transition for making art, and now exploring game designing and writing, and how do you feel those relate to each other? Like this game you made now, it's all your writing and all your art too, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's here I have a copy.
You
This is
yeah
whoop, there it is. TLD
yeah
RPG is the name of it. It's a rules light game, and to me, the art and the design go hand in hand. You know, it's like you can't really separate one from the other because they're both creating two halves of the same product, but they're doing it in different ways. So the the artwork looks the way it does because I'm trying to create a mood and an atmosphere and also give you information. Whereas the design of the game itself, the mechanics, you know, they're doing the same thing. The mechanics create a mood and an atmosphere also, you know, like uh, for instance, the game
yeah
is
for
very
sure.
the game is very lethal. You know, you're probably gonna die. Um, and that's just something that I wanted to kind of have as a core of the game. You know, that dangerous play style is something I was interested in exploring. And like, if you look at the art, now it makes sense. You know, they're both doing the same. Uh, they're both trying to get to the same place. You know, and even like the layout I kept very simple, kind of stark, and it's like because layout is an art as well. Layout is an interesting one because it's visual for sure, but it's also, of course, highly informational. So it's doing both at the same time, you know, and just because there's not a picture on the page doesn't mean it's not a visual art. And, you know, anyone who's
Yeah,
trying graphic design or layout for the first time knows this right away. Oh, this is hard. This is, you know, this isn't just dumping words on a paper. This is organization of information. And it's
yeah,
hard to do that right, you know? So yeah, I think that both the game design and the art itself are kind of two sides of the same coin. You know, they're both trying to get to the same goal, and they're just doing it in different ways.
yeah. And you wrote this and you illustrated everything. You made the layout all by yourself, right?
Yeah, it's like 95% me, I would say. I have
Yeah.
a guest artist, Michael Harmon, who's really great. He did two images in the book, but all the other
Oh
images
yeah.
are mine. The rules,
Yeah.
of course, changed over playtesting and stuff, but you know, and the
Yeah.
layout, I kind of just started with a template I found somewhere and then just kept tweaking it and modifying it until it was what I needed, and then, you know, yeah, put everything together. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a huge learning
Yeah.
experience, um, which, you know, I know you know all about. You know, it's you don't even
Yeah.
realize how much there is to learn until you try to learn it, and then you're like, oh my God, this
Of
is so
course.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was going on I ask is that like being you talked about how those things are, aligned, the art and the layout and the game design and the writing.
Mm.
And since you made everything, I was wondering if you would imagine, designing a game uh with the art and visuals completely inspired by another artist, and who would you choose? Like who would you work with,
Huh.
for example, in
Huh.
in a pro? Do you have anything like this?
Like,
Just fictional. It
yeah,
doesn't. Yeah.
yeah. Probably that's a really good question. And, you know, in true Billy style, I probably would have a list that's like 100 people long because I wouldn't want it to be everybody, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I think that I would really like to see something that is underrepresented. So I think a really cool idea would be to have an RPG game, but have it look and read like a children's book. So like have an illustrator like Kim Smith or like Chris Turnham, you know, someone who has a very kind of graphic but friendly style. Um, I think would make a really good book, and I think that it would lend itself well to role playing games because children's book illustrators are telling a story, obviously. Role playing games are a structure for you to tell a story, so they kind of go hand in
Yeah.
hand really well. And I just realized I have these things on my fingers we're talking about a weird podcast, and I was like doing this the whole time, and I just realized like it's on camera. Um, yeah, I think it would work really well to put like a children's book illustrator into a role-playing game and have it almost be like it's a game and a story at the same time, because that's what role-playing games kind of are, you know? So take that as far as you can logically take it and see where it goes, you know? I would like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember, I don't know
Awesome.
if you read them in Brazil much, but there's a popular series of books, children's books called Little Golden Books, and they're very, very popular here in the States. And they're children's books, and you could recognize them because the spine had this like gold foil on it, and that's why they're called Little Golden, I think. Um, and I always thought it would be neat to do something like that, you know, something that reads very simply, you know, but also has a definite structure to it, you know. So it's like you turn the page and it's almost like, you know, when you open a kid's book and it's like maybe just a few sentences, you know, and the picture is doing a lot of the work, but it's saying like, and now the kids did this and they went up the hill and they got the pail and they came down. And like that could be a mechanic, you know, just a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
lines of text with an image with it. And it's you could read it to someone like it was a story, and by the time they were done, they
Mm-hmm.
knew how to play your game. You know, instead of it feeling like an instruction
Yeah.
manual, it could feel like a story with a moral almost.
Oh yeah. That could be
Yeah.
cool. I saw that could be really, really nice. I saw recently, I can't remember who it was, but it was a really good project, which was a Runes Light RPG,
Mhm.
like a fantasy RPG, but made in a children's book format, but those books with thick cardboard pages, you know?
Uh, um, uh, was it Philip Reed?
I think it
Yeah,
is because
yeah.
he's always making. That
He's
was
so
the
good,
first name I came to my
so
mind.
good.
He makes always some stuff,
Yeah,
and that's a really good. I thought we should have something
yeah,
like this. As you were talking about that, I said, yeah, we should have something
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like this
yeah.
for sure.
It just makes sense. It
Yeah,
seems like a good idea that we haven't seen a million versions of, you know. So we should see more of those and explore it and see how far we can go. But
yeah,
yeah, I think that one of the interesting things about role playing games is they are rule books, you know, they are instruction manuals. And even the really, really good ones, sometimes they're hard to read, you know, because they're instruction manuals. So
yeah,
I think it would be interesting to approach it in a different way so that it was like tell a story so that you would actually want to sit down and read this thing cover to cover and you would be entertained by it. And then at the end, you would understand the game, you know? Um, and
yeah.
then, in fact, it actually reminds me of the one that's on Kickstarter right now. Um, I don't know how to pronounce it, like Fengshala or something like that. And it's the one that looks like the IKEA instruction manual. Have
Oh
you seen
yeah,
that? And I thought, oh, that's such a great idea. You know,
yes,
like,
yeah. From Daiko,
yes, yes,
from Daiko,
yeah,
right? The
Daiku Games.
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You know, that's such a cool idea, you know, and that's approaching a game book in a different way. And I really like that.
yeah,
Anything that's
yeah.
a different way, I'm
That's
interested. Yeah.
yeah. That's the something as the hobby. I think it's evolving and
Hmm.
trying to test its limits is something we will see more and more. Like the journaling games. I'm making one
Hmm.
that the book itself will be a journal,
Hmm.
and you play by feeling it and some stuff like this, like
Hmm.
simulating like you do in real life. And I think a lot of games exploring the other forms of presenting even the books themselves, as you said, because it is an instruction manual, but it is also a game. And sometimes you want the book not only to teach you the game, but also be a tool you use at the
Yeah.
game, like with tables and
Yeah. Yeah.
things that you want to make it useful
Yes.
also.
Yes.
And you also want to impart some type of narrative, or so it is kind of literature with accessory, with tool, and also an instruction manual. So it is really a Frankenstein, a new thing, and we're all playing a little bit with its limits. I think
Hmm.
it's a good place to go, I guess. And I love seeing uh, how the indie community is exploring this instead of making more 300 pages, 3 sets of manuals of the same game with a different game and slightly different mechanics.
Yeah. It's all about pushing the art form, which is what real artists do, kind of back to what we were talking about. Real artists push boundaries, it doesn't mean that every project you do has to like be progressive in some way, but the point of art is exploration and is finding
self-expression.
exactly.
And to limitations too, to what you can do too.
Yes.
Is also how you pursue art, because we don't see only the perfect, because otherwise all paintings would have to be perfect realism. We also explore what the art doesn't show, is incapable of showing too. And that's very the process, the intention. For me, it's all about the intention. Like if you give that up, it's nothing.
And it's funny, it's like if you look back at art history, basically pretty much every art style you can think of was created because someone was just like, well, what if we try this instead? And then now that's a new thing, and then that new avenue has been opened, and now you can go down there and explore, and you learn things that you didn't learn before, whether it's go ahead.
And these tools aren't capable of doing that because they are not creating something new. They are reproducing patterns it's learned. So it will never create new things. Never.
See, I hesitate to say never because I feel like that creates a blind spot for me. And
for now at least.
Exactly, because what really worries
the way they work now is they only reproduce patterns for now at least.
And what really worries me
is what we call AI.
It's whenever I say like this thing can't do this, what I really think is this thing can't do this right now, and if it can, that's going to be even worse, or that's going to be a whole other thing to worry about. Like that's the thing to worry about. And it's I think that we're right at the beginning of a really interesting time, and it'll be exciting and a little bit scary to see where it goes in 10 years, because I think that we are just now starting to uncover tools that are going to change some fundamental things that we think about being human, whether it's art or whether it's science or work, and it's not just modernization, and it's not just an increase in productivity. It's a fundamental shift in how we have operated as human creatures. This isn't just...
I think it's a little bit alienating. I think. And isolating.
It is. It really is. And it's not just with art and creativity. It's just technology in general. I mean,
yes.
I'm having a conversation with someone in a completely different country on my phone. It cost me nothing. It's super easy. It's high quality, like it was very fast. Like this was unthinkable, like even just a handful of years ago, like it was not that long ago that basically all videos on the internet were like the size of postage stamps and they were blurry, and we were happy, so it's like everything has changed so much so fast that you can only imagine where it's going to be in a few years. It's just, it changes the way we think about it changes the way we think about being human.
I think it's being like Gamma World or something. Pretty soon, but
I think it's gonna be like WALL-E. Actually, that's what I'm scared of. The Pixar movie WALL-E. That's what we're all gonna be like in these chairs.
That's a great movie,
so
by the
good.
way. Yeah,
it's so good.
Oh yeah, that's where we're heading. Like we don't want to do when we don't have to leave the house.
Yeah, exactly. Which
we can
sounds
work
great,
from home.
but...
We can.
Yeah,
we need to.
We need to.
Yeah.
Like we already have people walking around with VR headsets now, so that's the next step. The next step is basically just having it permanently there.
I wanna see reality, but through a filter. I don't wanna see.
Yeah, it's
That's
part of my weirdness is I'm always thinking,
cyberpunk is now, right?
yeah, yeah, it's right here, man. We're doing it.
Instead of cyberpunk 20 something, it should be like cyberpunk now.
Cyberpunk, that's
It's
gonna be
now.
the new version. Watch, someone's gonna steal your idea.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk now.
Cyberpunk now.
Yeah, cyberpunk now,
Yeah.
cyberpunk always. There you go. There's the tagline. But yeah, it's like I think that for a long time I've thought about these kind of things like technology and creativity, and like I've been with my wife for a long time, so she's heard me go off on these really long rants about like the future is going to be this and the future is going to be that, and I always thought that the really fundamental shifts in what it means to be human would come from like a different direction. I thought creativity would be like the last thing to fall. And it's
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
me
very
too.
surprising that it's one of the early ones, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
they gotta attack the heart, man. They gotta,
exactly. Exactly.
this decisive strike. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So I don't know, it can be a little depressing, but it can also be very exciting, you know? We'll see where it goes in a few years. But
Yeah.
as long as people keep making fun things, I think that's
Yeah.
gonna be very important.
I think we are doing what we can, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
doing our art. We're every day talking about it, and
yeah.
yeah,
People
that's what we can do,
Well,
right?
people forget the
If
power
we
of
the
art, you know? Um,
yeah,
I mean, I make silly images, I make silly whatever, you know, but art as a
fucking
whole,
ants.
yeah, art as a whole is an incredibly powerful force for change, you know? We've
Yeah,
all heard a song that's made us cry, and
yeah,
like biologically, there's no reason that should happen. It's just sounds, you know? But it's because art as a field and as a discipline, it does something to us inside. It has such a
yeah.
powerful hold on us deep inside that sometimes it can just sneak up and hit us right in the heart. And
Oh yeah, and games can do that just as
exactly,
well.
exactly,
Yeah,
you know, and it's all art can do that, whether it's painting or sculpture or game design or singing or
yeah,
dancing or whatever, or just honestly the art of being alive. You know, if you just sit down and if
yeah,
you just look at a tree for long enough, you're gonna
yeah,
start to fall in love with that tree, you know, because you realize
yeah.
there's a million creatures living in
If
that
we're
tree.
experiencing that,
Yeah,
yeah, how it is it given because we are not. We walk around,
yeah,
uh, just in a cloud of
yeah,
thoughts, not
yeah,
feeling our bodies, not feeling the clothes on our body, what are the smells we're smelling,
yeah,
the sensation. We're not feeling everything.
yeah. We kind of
But
shut
if you
ourselves off.
sit down and just concentrate on that,
Yeah,
it's so rich.
yeah.
With
Just be present, you know.
uh-oh.
Uh-oh, can you
Hello.
hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, we
And
had a little
if walk
blip.
around yeah, if walk
Yeah,
around concentrating on that stuff, it can be overwhelming
mm-hmm,
sometimes if
mm-hmm.
you are open to it. But it's also hard too. That's kind of a meditation kind of thing,
Exactly,
right? It's
exactly.
you train yourself, and just like you said about drawing, it won't happen like from day one, and we're like, oh, meditate, and
Yeah,
I'll feel great and cry of happiness.
yeah.
No, it's it takes
Practice.
time and practice,
Yeah,
and maybe you won't cry, but you feel a little better over time, like after a few weeks or something
yeah,
like this.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny. I actually think meditative is a really good way to put it because um, sometimes a habit that I built is sometimes I will just sit and like look at something. And I just did this yesterday. It was literally a tree. That's why I said a tree. I was just looking at a
yeah,
tree and I was just telling myself like, how many leaves do I think are on that tree? You know? And then that kind of blew my mind because I was like, I walk by this thing every day and this street has 50 trees on it, you know, and I don't even
yeah,
see them. I don't even see them. But inside that tree is like a miracle of life happening. You know, there's trillions of cells all doing their jobs, you know, to create this
oh yeah,
thing. And this tree is an environment that supports thousands of other life forms, you know, whether it's like the leaves of the tree itself,
Oh
or the
yeah.
worms and the
And
dirt.
graphically, it's
You know,
beautiful too. Like the
it's
patterns,
beautiful.
the way the branches branch,
And
and
I drew it after I thought about it. I drew
yeah,
it, and that was another meditative
yeah.
experience. Yeah, it's drawing. I had a teacher a long time ago who said to draw is to see. And
Yes, it
and
is.
it
Yeah,
is. I think that's
great.
so true. It teaches you to be present and mindful.
Oh yeah,
And I think that that's something that everyone needs. That's something
yeah.
everyone
When
needs to
it,
learn.
yeah, when I was learning how to paint, and you
Hmm.
learn that you have to paint like in the face, like in the shadows, you paint the face green. Sometimes you
Yeah,
insert green there.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, what the fuck? Like the face, like you're putting green. And yes, like
yeah.
if you zoom in, like if you really pay attention, yes, you see all tones of different colors that
Yes,
you wouldn't imagine,
yes,
seeing if you were not drawing, if you're not trying to paint, if you're not, you know, being mindful of the dreams. That's also, mindfulness. It is like
yeah,
drawing, like you pay attention, you really forget that, like you have to pay bills, or like you have to spend time with your wife. Yeah, you have
yeah,
to have this commission. Like I'm only, doing this. That's the same thing with exercise. Like I really noticed when I spend like 3 days without exercising, the anxiety starts to build up, and
hmm,
but when I'm doing exercise, I'm concentrating on doing that, and at least for half an hour, all those things go away.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think with drawing can be kind of the same. Anything you can really get into it,
hmm,
like this people say flow states. I don't know,
hmm,
but really put everything aside and just be there for
hmm.
that. I think that's great, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just an important part of being a healthy human. And unfortunately, it's something a lot of people have forgotten how to do because they're just so busy all the time. And they're always worried about the grind and
Yeah.
productivity and content creation and they're worried about what they can get out of something, and they don't realize that they can get everything they need out of just slowing down sometimes, because even
Yeah.
just listening to your own breath, you know if you just sit down and listen to your own breath and your own heartbeat and don't do anything else for 2 minutes except that, you're going to suddenly feel like
Yeah.
more better about your body and more connected to it. And like that's the kind of thing that I feel when I draw, honestly. It's 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 you become completely like zoned in and invested in a moment, and then you try to just spend all of your faculties basically concentrating on that moment. And to me, that's what drawing is, because drawing is my favorite art
Yeah.
by far. I like painting, I like a lot of different things, but drawing is my favorite art. And that's how I get.
Awesome. Yeah.
Another weird detail, someone I didn't know what I was doing until someone pointed out, when I would draw or when I would paint and I would get really into it, I would start rocking like this. And then I didn't even know I was doing it. And they said, "Oh, how do you keep your line straight when you're moving so much?" And I said, "What do you mean moving?" And then they said,
Yeah.
"You're rocking back and forth right now." And I was like, I stopped and I was like, I did not know I was doing that. And it's just because you get in that state.
Yeah.
You get in
I
that
make
state.
faces.
You do?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
that's funny.
yeah, I like the tongue, like
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
this, the
I make
tongue to the side
noises.
of the mouth or something.
I
Yeah,
make noises
like the same
sometimes.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah. You go,
this
zoom,
or get
zoom.
really close to the paper sometimes,
Yeah,
and I don't notice. Like the same thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
You
get
don't
in the
notice.
zone.
Exactly.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira again, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite games, a game that I created. And if you listen to the podcast, I love dinosaurs, and it's called Primal Quest. It is a weird stone and sorcery adventure game. It's a NSR game, which is this game that caters to the old school style of play, but has more modern and more cinematic gameplay adapted to our modern sensibilities. It has adventure with dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, spirity, sorcery, aliens, elder gods, and much, much more. It's very pulpy. It has, a complete rule set, a mini hex scroll, an adventure introductory adventure. You can find it at Exalted Funeral, itch.io, Drive-Thru RPG, and your best local game store. And we're releasing more and more stuff for it, so stay tuned and play Primal Quest. So let's get back to the weird with our chat. When you sit down, to work on your art, do you have any kind of ritual to get into the mood, to help you get in that state, that flow state, to spend that time drawing. And how long do you usually last this drawing sessions? Are you able to spend hours sitting on and working on your art?
It's funny because I have some rituals, but they're actually the opposite of what you would think because I'm definitely the type of person, if I'm not disturbed, I'll sit down at my computer and start creating, and then I'll look up at the clock and it'll be like 4 or 5 hours later. So my rituals that I've had to develop are forcing me to take breaks. I like using the Pomodoro technique or some variation of that, so that I found that if I draw for, say, about an hour, right around that hour mark, I start getting like stiff and like kind of cranky and and like I'm enjoying the art and I don't want to stop. And that's the only reason why I'm still going is because I just like what I'm doing. But I get less productive the longer I push.
Yeah.
So, those 3 hours or 4 hours that I pushed through were not as productive if I stop like every 30 minutes and I make myself, like play with my kids or do
Yeah.
some stretching. I really like being physically, active. So I'll do some like light stretching or sometimes I'll just get up and have a snack and like walk outside for a minute, like when I do that for 5 or 10 minutes, I sit down and I feel refreshed and now I'm like more energized and
Yeah.
more focused and more productive. So my routines are trying to make a a structured way where I can constantly feel refreshed, and that makes me much more productive. Um, yeah, I think as far as getting into a good working state, music is really big for me. Um, Usually, I prefer music that I can kind of tune out. So I'll use like ambient sounds or something like that, or like or
Soundtracks.
maybe classic. Yeah, soundtrack. Well, like I like to listen to like nature sounds and things like that. And I realize this
Mm-hmm.
is weird now that I'm saying it out loud, but like sometimes I'll put on like the sound of like water running or birds chirping or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
or even like background noise recorded in a busy restaurant.
Mm.
So it's like people talking,
Yeah.
but I can't understand it. And for some reason that makes me feel very like that flow
Yeah.
state we were
What
talking about.
is what they people
So
call those
like
those white noises,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
brown
yeah.
noise. I don't know the difference between the like the colors of the noises,
Yeah.
but like the
They're different frequencies is
oh
what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'll go on YouTube and I would open like several tabs at once. So I would have like background restaurant chatter, but also have classical music, and then also have a TV show episode playing all at the
Wow.
same time.
Wow.
And it's because I wanted something to like block out the world,
Yeah. You're
because
crossing the
it's
streams, man, like Ghostbusters. What's
yeah,
going
yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah. I,
Yeah.
I I think actually I've discovered I think I probably have tinnitus, which is like a ringing in my ears. Um,
Yeah.
Basically 24 hours a day, if I stop and I think about it, there's a
Yeah.
ringing in my ears. And I think that maybe all of that kind of white noise helps to
Yeah.
ignore it
My wife has
because
that.
some,
Yeah. We have
yeah,
to
it
sleep
sucks, man.
with some kind of music, like sleeping
Yeah, yeah,
sounds
or
and stuff like this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And even some days
Sometimes
that's not enough too.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's so loud that it actually gives me a headache.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
like, yeah, and like I can't sleep.
Mm.
Um, I was describing it to my wife, I was telling her,
And they don't know what
the
to do with
scene,
that, right? My wife went to all
eh,
doctors. They
yeah,
like there
they don't know
is
what to do.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do. They're
Do
just
you,
like,
do
you
you
could
have
try
like a
this, you could
super
try that.
hearing? Because I think my wife hears stuff that I can't hear. Like I don't know how, but I think
Yeah,
that's ringing. It's because he has like this super hearing. Do you have that?
yeah.
Like, can you hear stuff that people can hear?
Well, according to my wife, I don't hear anything she says to me,
Yeah.
but I hear everything
Well.
else great, so I don't
Uh,
know. Um, yeah, I did take a hearing test once, and the guy said I have excellent hearing.
yeah.
Um, I was getting worried because it was actually getting hard for me to hear like um, conversations right in front of me. Like when there was a lot of ambient noise
Oh
around.
yeah.
Like for instance, for a long time I worked as a server in restaurants, and I noticed after a long time I kept having to ask people to repeat themselves. Like someone who's sitting 3 feet in front of me trying to order food,
Yeah.
I couldn't hear them, and I could hear all the noise of the restaurant, but I couldn't hear them. And so I started to get worried that I was losing like my hearing. And the guy said, "No, you have excellent hearing." Like
Yeah.
he showed
It's
me these
yeah.
graphs and everything. It's weird. So I think it's like
Sensibility
an
thing
ambient
too.
thing.
Yeah, because
It's like a
uh
processing issue, I think,
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Everything's kind
and
of going the same volume and it's hard
yeah,
to
it kind
yeah.
of turns into like mush,
Yeah.
like a audio mush actually. And I just discovered this thing. I had this really unnerving experience where I was trying to fall asleep, and I heard like a booming noise, and it sounded like someone slamming a door kind of. Um, and I realized this happens not often, but it happens sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep. So I did some looking around, and I realized, or I found out that there's this thing called exploding head syndrome. And I
Wow.
know it sounds bad, but it's
Yeah.
totally harmless. It sounds bad, but no, it's actually a thing that people have where, as they're trying to fall asleep, they hear crashing or exploding
Oh.
sounds in their head, and they're not caused by anything outside. It's completely in their head, and it has to do with something about like the neural pathways that have to do with like sound are like getting confused by something else that it's doing at that moment when you're thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
it's purely like in your head, and it's not actually auditory. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So I don't know. I've had a lot of weird sound issues like that over my life, and I think that putting on 3 or 4 YouTube channels at the same time for some reason has been helpful. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
also way too much loud rock music when I was young. That probably didn't help.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're like 21, you're stupid. You don't do anything right.
Yes.
So
Yes. Like I would stand
I would
right
go,
in front of,
yeah,
the sounding buffers.
the
Yeah.
huge speakers,
Yeah.
speakers that were taller than me, and I'm
Yes.
putting my head in there,
Yeah.
and it's like
And
stupid.
and the show ended,
Yeah,
you would hear like "Yee" all the
yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah. And
and you
for
would
like 2 days
go home
later, I would
speaking
be
with our
hearing that.
friends, screaming with each other because we can't
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
anything.
You can't hear
Yeah.
anything. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I did the same thing,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, no wonder you can't hear anything, dummy.
Yes.
Yeah, don't
Billy.
do that, kids. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's fun. If I
Yeah,
mean nowadays, if my kids want to go to the shows and stand in front of a buffer instead of watching YouTube at home, have at it. Go
you know what?
explode your ears. I don't
I
know.
used to laugh at people. I would go to shows and they would have earplugs in, and I'm like, "Oh, you're not hearing the show," and blah blah blah. They're like, "No, I can still hear. I'm just not destroying my ears."
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like, I wish I would
Yeah,
have done
maybe.
that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
used to wear them because I played drums. So when I was playing, I
yeah,
would wear it. But if
yeah,
I'm watching a show, yeah, no. Maybe
yeah,
I should
yeah,
have, but I never thought about it.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a good
No,
idea. Yeah. No,
yeah.
it's too late.
They have those new ones now that are like, it's not closed off. It's like a loop,
Mm.
and they let through some of the sound. I don't know. My brother has them. I've never tried them, but he
Yeah.
really likes them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billy, now getting
Hmm.
to the question, like, what
Yeah.
is
Sorry.
weird? No, that's great. Like, we
Yeah.
had a great
Yeah.
chat. We explored
Yeah.
a lot of very interesting things, and I'm very proud of really not religious following like the questions list because I think it's all about exploring what the guest has to say and things we like to talk about. So the questions are more like prompts, like our random
Yeah.
tables in our games. So
Yeah.
yeah, we we
Yeah.
we, we tackle what we can. What it's been
Yeah.
a great
Yeah.
chat. So, but talk about weird now, and then the thing I talked about, weird being great, and etc. What is weird for you, and how do you explore that in your work and in your life in general, like the things you do or the things you like and the people you hang out with and stuff like that?
That's a good question. It's to me, weird is the kind of thing that's like it's like the word art. To me, I have a very, very broad view of what art is or what an artist is because it's so subjective, you know? And there's a lot of artists out there who I either don't like their work or I don't get it, but I still believe they're making art. And, similarly, I feel like nothing I do is weird. I'm not a weird guy. I feel like everyone else might think I'm weird, but, like I might think they're weird, So it's kind of like weird is just like upsetting an expected idea. That to me, that's kind of as general as I can think of it. It's like doing the unexpected, So if you usually make your sandwich in this way, and then today you throw in a new ingredient, like that's weird.
Oh yeah,
It's because it's weird for you,
oh
and
yeah.
it's so subjective. So like sometimes when I'm making art, I will do something
Like those
like
British toasts with beans, you know. That's
yeah,
weird for
yeah.
me, and I would like to try it, but I
Yeah,
saw. No, I have no experience that. My experience with that is Peppa Pig because they eat, a
toast with
toast
beans.
with beans. But that's
Actually,
exactly that, right? It's just because it's not common, for my culture.
yes.
That's weird,
Yeah,
but I'd like to try.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've had that many times, and so it's not weird to me at all,
Oh yeah.
In fact, there's another version of that. They call it shit on a shingle,
What
and
is that?
it's basically toast with beans and a little gravy.
Hmm.
It's poor
Yeah.
people food, They would give it to soldiers, and they called it shit on the shingle.
Oh yeah.
So,
Like PB and
um,
J. It's great. It's not common in
oh, I love
Brazil,
PB&J.
but it's
Yeah,
like so common in pop culture
yeah,
that we do it sometimes here.
yeah,
It's good. Yeah.
yeah,
Like, but
yeah. So
we
it's
also do here. It's like similar to that. It's like guava, the fruit.
hmm
So there's like a guava jam with cream cheese sandwich. It's
whoa,
great.
that's
It's
weird.
fantastic.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to try that. But yeah, weird is just slightly upsetting the expectation, And I think that um, because I view it that way, it allows me to work it into my art. Um, and sometimes it's just something minor, like I'll take something um, almost at random and I will tweak it just to see how it changes things. And sometimes it's just like a detail nobody really notices, or sometimes it's like it just led me to reset the way I thought about that part of the picture, and now it refreshed my brain a little bit, Like, okay, so like for instance, this book. So if you'll notice, it's a face and there's a drip happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Originally, originally, the drip was perfectly centered. That was the original design. And just through messing around with it, it became off center slightly. And I thought, oh, that's weird. That's better. And it's because
Yeah.
when something
It's
I
so
originally had
balanced.
it
Yeah.
centered, yeah, when I originally had it centered because it felt proper and it felt right. But then once it nudged slightly off, it became more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I used that small detail to hopefully make an image that was slightly less comfortable, And that's the whole point
Yeah.
of this image, is to be aggressive and uncomfortable. So I thought, there, that just worked. And it's kind of weird, but it works. And it was purely just from having that kind of
Yeah. And it's not
having that philosophy of
completely
just mess it up.
to a
Yeah,
side to make clear of center. It's just slightly to give you that
yeah,
impression. Is this center? Is this
yes,
not? And it's the weird,
yeah,
like the uncomfortable,
yeah, yeah,
the detail. That's great. Great design, by the
yeah.
way. Yeah. And
Oh,
I
thank
love
you,
the
thank you.
picture that you put half the book. and the face, just the smile.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
did that
Yeah.
just to be goofy, and then I saw other people doing it. And I thought, this is great. I love
That's
this.
amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's game design too. That's you
Yeah.
created something for the community to play with, and you turn the book itself into something they can play and express appreciation of the game, and it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fantastic game design.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited reading about rules of play, and talks about that, how you also the game you have to create ways for a community to form around it, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the things you make the game itself something that players can play outside of the game in a way.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's a funny art form because you're making a piece of art that changes every time someone looks at it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's another form of art that does that, you know. I'm speaking about just
Yeah.
role-playing games in general. It's one of the really interesting things about RPGs is that it's never the same twice,
Mm-hmm.
and it can't be the same thing twice, you
Yeah.
know, and that's by design. Even if you make all the same decisions, you know, the dice are going to decide differently.
Yeah.
So it's it's um it's an
That's
art
one of
form that
the
changes depending on who's playing
strengths.
it, and it
Yeah.
changes that every time, and I love that. I just love that. What you were
Yeah.
saying?
That's one of the strengths of the art form, I think. How
Hmm.
every experience of it can be unique to everyone experience. Of course, like kind of every art is kind of like that. Like I watch a
Hmm.
movie, you watch it, we experience it in different ways because we have different experiences. Uh,
Hmm.
but the next, like the same main never crosses the same river twice because the
Yeah,
main's
yeah.
different, the river's different.
The rivers try. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but the RPGs
Yeah.
is great because it is incomplete. Like you're giving something for them to create and play, and every time they will play, it will be different. That's
Hmm.
one thing that I love about sandboxes, adventures, and settings instead of you
Yeah.
know the rail boxy that's trying to tell a story because it will feel the same in a way, even though like we
Yeah.
make different decisions. If
Yeah.
things happen the same way, it's I don't know. For me, it's very frustrating, but yeah, it's
Yeah, because it
stuff
almost
people
feels like
do.
they're
Yeah,
not doing a role-playing game, you know? It feels
yeah.
it feels like if you're
Maybe it's still
taking away
oriented
that quality.
to
Mhm.
simulating a novel instead, because that's very typical from the 90s, and they were still
Exactly.
trying to understand the media, I think. And I
Yes,
think we're
yes.
only discovering, yeah, we can draw from literature, so let's make it tell a story. And
Yeah.
it's not a coincidence that one of the most popular games about this age use the term storyteller, right?
Mm, mm.
For the gem, because it has this focus of telling that this age has like adventures that has this grand finale and stuff like this. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a vital part of what a role-playing game is, you know, is that you're telling a story, but it's an improvised story and it's collaborative.
yeah,
So it's a improvised collaborative storytelling is what role-playing games is to me. Then if you take away one of those elements, you're taking away something vital, and it changes what it is, you know. And if you take away too much of the collaboration, then you're basically just telling a novel, you know.
yeah,
You're saying, this is my story, so you listen to it now, you know. And
yeah,
it's like that's a betrayal of what the game is supposed to be, you know. Like,
yeah,
it, novels are a beautiful art form, but this is not a novel, you know. This is a game that plays differently every time you pick it up, and that's its beauty and that's its strength. And I think that's we should lean into those strengths so that we can explore what that medium can offer us, you know.
yeah.
And it's like, otherwise, what are you doing? You're trying to jam a square peg into a round hole, you know.
Yeah,
So
I think it was part of the development of the hobby, I think, and we're
mhm.
we're ever more distant from that. Even though
Yeah, yeah.
the most popular games still do a lot of that. I think there is still, even them are trying to step away from this uh, limited form of exploring. I think.
Yeah.
But Billy, talking about a little bit about maybe your inspirations, and I always ask people if they can maybe identify a main source of where you draw, maybe your inspirations, your ideas from. Of course, as artists, as and designers, we always, as you said, like looking at everything with new eyes and trying to see, as you said, like the tree, and
Mhm.
getting ideas from everywhere. Uh, but I see myself also drawing a lot from myself and my experiences, and especially from my childhood, the stuff that I consumed, like comics, movies, and cartoons, and etc. Do you
Mhm.
identify anything like this for yourself? Maybe an area of your life that you draw a lot from when you work on your art and your writing and your creativity?
Yeah, I kind of feel like everything. Uh, I feel like my brain is a stew, and everything goes in there and cooks and mixes together, and then it comes out on the page. And
You don't have like a
it's
main ingredient.
not really. I think that there are a
Yeah.
few things. There are a few things that were really kind of left a big impression on me, and they might be hard to see in my work now. But like for instance, one of my favorite things in my whole life is Calvin and Hobbes, the comic.
Oh,
And I don't do
love it.
comics and I don't do that style, but it made such an impression on me. It taught me a lot about like the power of an image and the storytelling power of an image, you know, that I think that even the fact that I am making images now is partially due to that. So like stylistically it might not show up a lot, but it's part of the reason why I'm even doing what I'm doing, is people like that. Bill
Oh yeah, Bill
Watterson was a big
Watterson.
influence, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frank Miller was another really big influence when I was younger.
I have
His
to say something about Bill
mhm.
Watterson that I think
Uh-huh.
it's very inspiring. Is that he made Calvin and Hobbes, and it's one
Uh-huh.
of the most fantastic comic strips ever created.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I have the complete one, and
Oh, me too.
it's in English, but I want to buy in Portuguese to show my kids because that's series about he traveling to the future and the past to convince himself to do his homework. It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
my favorite thing of all time. And but what I like to say is that he appreciated he worked so much as an art that he didn't license it like to be toys and explore it
Yes.
commercially, and and I
Yes.
and I think about that a lot, about his commitment to the art form, and kind of the refusal to let it be explored, you know, I don't know, by capitalism. And now he's a great painter, and you said you don't see a lot of influence, but he also, I was reading about stuff. He talked about the importance of drawing, and you mentioned like the drawing part, and he made a comic strip for like kids, but he's a fantastic artist. He
Yeah.
draws very
Yeah.
well, and even in his painting, you can see like the drawing part that you focus so much to. And I think and now that you mention, I see those I don't know, similarities. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
fantastically talented. He's a master of that craft, and then it's
yeah,
I mean, and I agree. I think that the fact that he didn't license that stuff and sell a bunch of lunch boxes and bed sheets
yeah,
and things like that's really admirable, and
yeah,
it shows what he was committed to. He was committed to
yeah,
the work, the art. You know, yeah.
yeah.
Another big one is Frank Miller. He's really been
Mm-hmm.
a big influence on me. I think his style is probably easier to see in my style visually, but um, he I still remember the very first time I read his book. It was called A Dame to Kill For. And I remember I was sitting on my grandma's couch and I was little. And like I closed the book after reading the last page and I said out loud, wow. Because like I had
Mm-hmm.
never experienced something like that. I'd never had a comic book
Yeah,
take me away like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And and I was talking about maybe you mentioned artists too, but I'll also ask if there is maybe another artist or creator game designer or whatever writer that inspires you, not necessarily to the work they do, but the way they approach their craft, they approach their work, or the way they approach how they position themselves in the community.
Mhm.
Uh, do you have anyone like that? Maybe you learn it from not necessarily like mentorship, but maybe observing the way they do things and trying to emulate that to to learn to grow as an artist too.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, two people come to mind. Um, One of them is the writer Stephen King. He wrote a really good book about the craft of writing, and
Mm,
I read it when I was younger, and one of
which
the
book?
on writing,
Oh, oh yeah,
and one of the things that really impressed me was that he said his routine is basically like every day he has to sit down and write. You know, he writes for 4 hours, he takes a break, he writes for 4 hours, he's done. And it just really kind of impressed me that, like, it impressed upon me the idea that the way to get better at something is by doing that thing, you know? And
yeah,
if you love something, you just do it anyway. So you're gonna get better at it. And it kind of just was like, oh, that was a big eye-opening
yeah.
moment because it showed me just do the work, man. Just do the work, and it'll be bad, but then you'll get better, and then do more, and it'll get even better. You know, um, I
And
think
how
that
good are you at doing? How good are you at doing that? And doing the work and sitting down and doing that
it's a struggle.
every
It's
day.
a struggle,
Yeah,
you know, especially being like a stay-at-home dad with two kids. You know, like it's it's definitely a balancing act, and it's tempting to say like, no, I need my work time. You know, I have to do this. I have to do this. And then also, it's like when your kid is like, "Hey, Dad, will you play with me?" You better get off your ass
yeah,
and play with that kid. You know, like
yes,
being a
yes,
being a good artist is important to me, and like hopefully bringing in some money for my family is important for me. But none of those things are as important as just being a good dad and being present. You know, so it's
yeah.
definitely a juggling act. Yeah. Another person actually that impresses me with the way that they approach their work is actually in the RPG scene. It's Alan Barr. Um,
Oh yeah,
I'm sure everybody listening knows who he is. Um, but if
from
you've
Gallant Knight
ever,
Games,
yeah,
Tiny 6 lines.
yeah,
He makes
yeah,
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
a lot of stuff. He's very busy. Um, but I've had the good fortune to work with him on a couple of projects, and also the good fortune just to talk to him about work and art and craft and
Yeah, I learned a lot from him. I worked with him for a
yeah,
few years. We had a partnership.
yeah,
For me, he's a mentor. Yeah,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah,
It's the way that he approaches the work, and also
the
he's
community.
the community. Exactly, community is a big deal to him, and it was nice to see someone that was making good work, but also wasn't just about themselves. And
Yes.
I think that we just need more of that kind of thinking, you know. And it's like I like personally being of service to people, and I like
Yeah.
being able to help people, you know. And that's why, like, anytime someone will DM me asking for advice or feedback on their work or something, I'm so happy to do it, you know. And I even do like a volunteer art class at my son's school, you know, just because I like helping
Awesome.
people. So like
Yeah.
when I met someone like him who is very 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 good at making his work, but also knowledgeable and willing to share knowledge and just wants to like help the community. Like that was a big thing for me. So yeah, I think those are
Yeah.
two big ones.
Great examples for the community and for people to check those things out. Check Alan's work, and I will definitely try to check out Stephen King on writing. And it also made me remind a book. You said like it is a struggle to remind ourselves of this, and there is a book that really helped me, and maybe it's getting close for me to read it again. It's called "Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be," and it is about that. It's something I want to tattoo that, look at my arm and see, put your ass where your heart wants to be. Because that is like, you want to be a good parent, you want to be present. So yeah, when your kids wants to play, yeah, I want to finish writing this game.
Yeah,
Uh, but my kid won't be with me forever.
Yeah.
They would go away. So
Yeah.
yeah, I stopped that, and I would go do that
Yeah.
because, and I think it also helps with creativity too. It's always about creativity has a lot of to do with being a kid, right? And we can learn a lot
Yeah.
from our kids.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
even though maybe you want to work on your game, maybe see about, yeah, I will steal some ideas from playing with, I'll learn
Yeah.
something. So you're kind of working in your game too if you go play with your kid. I know I have, had many ideas while, playing with him, and it's
Yeah.
great. It's very important, I think. Yeah.
Plus, kids are a great source of ideas themselves. And it's because
Yeah.
the way they look at the world is differently. So sometimes you'll show them something and they'll say, "Oh, but Dad, but what if the tiger can fly or something?" And you're like,
Yeah.
"That's amazing. Yes, yes, he
Yeah.
should." And it's like, just it gives you that little spark, because kids are amazing, man. They look at the world
Yeah.
differently, and they say whatever they want.
Their eyes aren't tired as ours, I guess. Or
Exactly.
or with all the vices and the
Yeah.
routines and habits.
Yeah.
We create a lot of shortcuts to interpret reality in the world, and they don't have that yet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of our job to the things that you said, like to watch the trees and trying to see those things. I try to do that a lot with my kid, to stop and try to see reality with new eyes, and like we stop at the trees. Oh, look at that tree! Look how beautiful! Everything is green, and that one tree has these purple flowers or something, or this ray of sunshine is there is always one detail you can stop and appreciate. And I think creating that eye that can notice things and not be distracted all the time, because as we're talking in the beginning, all this catastrophic things about the future, and
Mhm.
it's all about distraction, right? Everything now is about distracting us,
Yeah.
cell
Yeah.
phones and YouTube or streams, and the news, 24 hours news. We If we pay attention, that we won't think of anything else, right?
Yeah.
So
You
it's
get
very
lost.
important to learn how to disconnect and just focus on something and seeing things with a new eye, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. That's what it is. It refreshes you. And
Yeah.
like I was doing something the other day, and I was walking by, and I said, "Oh, what a nice view," and that was it, you know. And then
Yeah.
like a few minutes later, I noticed again, "Oh, what a nice view," and then I walked away, and then I told myself, "What are you doing? Like, there's beauty in front of you," and it barely registered. So I actually like made myself walk across the street, and I
Yeah.
stood and I looked at the hills, and because that's all it was. It was
Yeah.
just I was up a little bit high. The hills were beautiful, and then I stood there for a couple of minutes, and I started noticing more and more things, and like,
Yeah.
oh look, I can see tiny cars down there, and oh look, I didn't even notice this bush in front of me has like 50 bumblebees in it, and so I
Yeah.
watched the bumblebees, and it's like looking at them doing their job, and it was just a really nice 5 minutes, and it was like all that was there, and I barely registered it. The funniest part is I went, oh, that's pretty. Like I noticed it, but I didn't appreciate it. So
Yeah.
I made myself just stand there, and my dad even walked up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "Just appreciating it while I still can." And that
Yeah.
was it. It was just a nice 5 minutes, because you have to slow
Yeah.
down and refresh.
You do. Otherwise, we only concentrate on the bad stuff. And
Yeah.
people actually say we have to make that effort because, no, our brains were wired to survival. So we are wired to pay attention to the bad stuff so we can escape the tiger,
Yeah.
this kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Exactly.
But nowadays, we don't have to do that. So we
Yeah.
have to actually make 9 times as more effort to remember the good stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, than that bad stuff. So
Yeah.
stopping to do that is very important. But Billy, talking about your work, are you working on any new project now you want to talk about to the wonderful weirdos who are listening to us? What is coming out from Billy Blue?
Um, well, I'm working with quite a few people.
I'm very fortunate. I have a bunch of projects that hopefully people will like. A few actually with Alan, who we mentioned before.
Awesome.
I have some. I'm working on actually a really nice cover right now for Chris Williams. He's with Explore Dungeons. It's a really cool one. I can't wait for people to see it. As far as my own stuff, I have actually a couple of ideas that I've been working on, and I really want to get them to a certain place. But one that I'm really excited about is a survival game, and you crash landed in the wilderness, and you have to survive. But as you play the game, you're filling in the map as you're exploring it, and you're getting to deal with like surviving in nature, you know.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was inspired by like a lot of like survivalist movies and TV shows and
Yeah, I
videos.
was wondering about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
To have like a game like all the players go to the island and they have to like a reality TV show, the survival kind of
that would
game.
be cool.
Could
Yeah,
be fun. Yeah.
yeah. So my idea was to basically have the player crash in the middle of wilderness and then have to get out of the wilderness using basically just their survival skills. And they're filling out the map as they're playing the game. And I think that I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I was thinking it would be neat if the format of the game looked like a travel
A
brochure,
folded map.
like a kind of like
Oh
a
yeah.
travel, like you get when you go to like a national park,
Yes.
you know, and
Like
if you
folded map stuff.
yeah, and like
Yes. That's
it'll
gonna
have
be cool. Yeah.
yeah, and it'll say like watch out for bears, like and on the side and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I'm kind of excited about right now, but it's kind of on the back burner for the moment because I'm just working on stuff.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I just do a lot of illustrations for a lot of different people. So my work is kind of all over the place. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Yeah. I'm working on a journaling game and I have idea for another one. And then my wife said, yeah, maybe you could release like a trilogy. And one of the third game would be like maybe a game about journaling travel. So you generate where you want to travel and stuff like this. And I think that's interesting. So like you can put pictures, and I think that's interesting stuff to explore
Yeah.
these different formats and playing with the medium and the theme of the game, and break away from the traditional read the book and then make a sheet and you play
Yeah.
at the table. It can be very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. There's so many more options out there that we can explore, and for me, the way that I look at gaming is, like I was saying before, it's collaborative and it's improvised and it's storytelling. So if I just kind of keep those three things in mind, I can explore a lot of different options now, because there's a lot of different ways to do that. Whether it's journaling games or just the traditional sit around the table with your friends. Like, I have actually this other really neat idea where you use the Jenga tower, and I know there's a few games that do that, but what I was doing in the playtest was the bricks themselves actually are the events that happen in the dungeon. So the tower is the dungeon. You pull the bricks out, and on the brick it says, oh, a goblin attacks you or whatever, or oh, there's a cave in, or whatever. And so you're doing the Jenga tower, and it's getting more unsteady. And then when the tower falls, that's when the bad guy pops out. And it's like you had to go through that tower to hopefully get some experience, hopefully like get some treasures, and now the bad guy is here, because you're exploring his lair. So the Jenga tower is his dungeon, and when the tower falls, then that's when the bad guy comes out, and now you have to fight him. Yeah.
And players can play with that. Maybe if they can know which each brick is, then can kind of choose which one to go, but they can choose anyone because this one might make the thing fall, or maybe they will try to make the thing fall exactly to get to the guy sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's can be a different strategic play there. Can
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah.
And the whole idea started from such a silly place because I was playing Jenga with my kids, and I realized I was looking at the tower, and I realized the pattern was it looked like bricks on a wall. And so just I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I just want to get a pen, and I want to doodle a little brick on the end of each of the Jenga
Mm-hmm.
blocks. And then I realized, oh, if I just draw a simple brick on the end of every Jenga block, it will look like a stone tower. And then I was like, oh my god, it's a dungeon. And then that's how the whole idea kind of came
Yeah.
about. So yeah, I made a whole bunch of little like prototype cards so that I could like draw them quickly and like resolve actions. And it's a system based on like 1d6, and you're trying to, and there's like a threat level for each event, and you're trying to roll above or like different stats. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's still in the works,
That's
but it's
cool.
fun. Yeah.
It can be even, be a dungeon generator someday,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very cool idea. Very
Thank
make me
you.
start thinking about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So your journaling game, what I'm interested, what do you bring to a journaling game to make it stand out from other journaling games?
Well, that depends. Now I'm working currently on a dream journal kind of
Oh, yeah,
game.
the Dreamless one, right?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
dreamless journal. And
I
the
like-
idea is you have all these, random tables with different things that can happen in the dream. But the idea is that random tables will be prompts and you will fill the book. So every person will have a different game because they will fill the random tables with their experience. Because, for example, one of the categories, there will be 12 categories because we roll a d12 to see where your dreams will come from. There will be stuff like recent events, childhood, teenage years, adulthood, maybe work, relationships, and there is questions like each category has like 6 different kinds of dreams, and as you play, you will answering these questions and forming those dreams. And as you play again, you can change those tables. So the game will be a journal too.
Yeah.
So as you're playing with that, and as you mix the games, there will be a room also for lucid dreaming, so you can spend points to change the results of the dice of your dreams,
cool,
to kind
yeah.
of have some control over it,
Totally.
and ways to make things weird, like the dice to see the outcome of what happens. But if you roll this, it can get weird in a good way or weird in a bad way, and kind of teach you how to explore this kind of dreamlike aesthetics. And then I think that is like playing with how dreams work, because I was having this conversation with my wife about how I imagine dreams work. Is like you go to sleep and your subconscious just open like your minds and start playing with your memories like toys. Oh, I'll play with this, and crash with, like playing with car toys, just with action figures, and getting your mother and Darth Vader, and like, yeah, and they will fight, yay! And,
Yeah.
and that's what I set out to do with my game, because I can't remember my dreams, and I wanted to have a dream journal to draw inspiration from. So I said, well, I'll make a dream generator with mechanics, to develop the dream, and then have like twists, like fiasco games, and things get weirder, and then gets the results, and then I write a journal, like a dream journal, and make the game look like a journal, to have space for you to write, and have these questions that the reader will write itself. So every game will be, my dreamless journal will be different, because you have to feel it, right? So that's the idea I got for this one. I have other ones with other ideas too, but yeah.
I like that. Yeah, actually, a weird thing about me is that I don't remember any of my dreams.
Yeah.
When I
That's,
go to sleep and I wake up. That's it.
Yeah, what I say is because we daydream so much that when we get to bed, all the dream pool is used, and like
Yeah.
your subconscious go, well, you left everything out of the box, so
Yeah.
I don't know what to do now.
Your brain is saying, you used all my toys,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. You know what a neat idea might be is to, I realize no one would probably play it this way, but if there was a dream journal game where you went to sleep but set an alarm like 1 hour later, and you woke up and you just wrote down the first thing you thought of, and then went back to sleep. And you wouldn't remember it until you woke up. And then whatever you wrote down, you can now integrate into the game session the next time,
Yeah.
But because sometimes I will wake up in the middle of the night and I'll write something down. And so I'm having dreams, but I just don't remember them. So when I wake up, sometimes I'll have these thoughts. And I'm like,
That's one thing I write in the game. It's like I say that I don't dream, but it's just that I don't remember them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a funny thing. Thomas Edison used to do this thing because he thought he got his best ideas like on the edge of dreaming and sleep. So he
Salvador Dali would do that thing, like he would sleep with a spoon on his mouth.
Oh,
and
really?
Goes off, the spoon fall, and he would wake up in this kind of dreamlike state.
Yeah.
And paint. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's so funny because Thomas Edison would fall asleep with a metal ball in his hand in a chair, and he had a metal plate on the floor, or like a bowl. So when he would fall asleep, he would drop the ball into the bowl, and it would wake him up. And then he would write down his ideas, because he thought he got good ideas in.
Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, actually, I've set alarms and woke myself up, and I get some weird ideas, man.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. I was thinking about trying that someday, but I was like, I don't know. Is this really work, or is this kind of like a mythology of the character, because it is very attractive, very wow. They were so, I don't know.
Yeah, it
seems cool.
Your brain is so much different when you sleep, So it's like if you and I are the type of people who just don't remember what our brain is doing, we might be amazed to discover what it's up to,
Yeah.
So I have a file in my phone called Sleep Notes, and I write things down as I'm falling asleep. And when I wake up and read them, I never remember writing them down.
Yeah.
But they're always
people say if you look at your screens before sleeping, it's hard to remember your dreams too. So I don't know.
Makes sense, yeah. But it's like if I even just can I'm nodding off and then I just write down a few words, When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh my god. Or actually, I get a lot of image ideas when I'm falling asleep. So I'll pull out my phone and do a quick sketch with my finger, and then go back to sleep.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, because I get a lot of images that way. I think that my brain actually thinks more graphically when I'm sleeping, because the images I come up with when I'm falling asleep are usually very, very graphic and very not violent, but I mean big bold shapes, they're very kind of powerful images with big bold shapes, and I like that because that's compositionally,
they're
composition graphic. So
how they say pragmatic, not pragmatic, it's like pregnant. No, pregnant, no, that's that's similar to our word in Portuguese, but it's very, it sticks to your mind, right? Like the shapes and how similar to Gestalt, the way that forms have a strong, like the triangle forms and the composition, and the way it drives the eyes and etc.
Exactly.
I said pregnant, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Hey, tudo bem.
Yeah. You're getting out to the end of the podcast, so I'd like to ask more, personal questions about your life and experiences, and how do you are with spirituality and religion and maybe philosophy? Do you have anything that helps you deal with your life in general? Problems, struggles, and helps you guide in difficult times? Do you anything like this?
Yeah. I don't have any religious beliefs. Um, to me, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't offer me anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my philosophy for being happy and living a good life is very simple, and it's just be kind. Just the older I get, the more I realize the right answer is usually just be nice to people. You know, when when I'm in a good mood, be nice. When I'm in a bad mood, be nice. When someone is being selfish, just be nice to them because they're having a bad day too. So like, and
Yeah.
me being angry at someone doesn't solve the situation. It makes it worse. It's like throwing gasoline
Yeah.
on a fire. So I think just be nice to people is my philosophy. And
And
um,
where did you think you learned that from?
from people not being nice to me, people think,
Okay.
you know. Um,
Well, that usually works the other way, right? Usually, when people are mean to us, we learn to be mean, right? That's
yeah,
usually
yeah,
we learn by example. So
yeah.
that was my question was like, who was your example? How did you learn that, or was that something you learned the hard way? I would say, like you.
Yeah. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? A lot of it is having kids has been really eye opening for me
Well, have you
because
read about it? How did you educate yourself? Because it's for me, it's very hard. Like I had a terrible uh childhood in a way. How to be violent and all this kind of stuff.
hmm
And it was really a learning process to read about this stuff and to
yeah,
be kind. It's I had to learn about this. How was it for you?
it was very similar. It took me many many years to realize that certain things in my childhood were not normal, and certain things in my childhood were, not healthy. And having kids was a big eye opening experience for me because now I was responsible for this person. I was responsible not just for keeping them alive, but for making them a good person. And so that really made me examine, you know, everything in my life up to that point. So um, it was kind of a matter of like
No.
what other people did to me that I didn't like, do the opposite of that. And that was kind of my starting game plan as a parent. Just do the opposite of everything that you
Yeah.
didn't like, you know. And it got more refined, obviously, but yeah, it was kind of just like just be nice to people, and
Yeah.
and that will answer 9 out of 10 questions. And
Yeah.
like, um,
That makes me remember a scene. I'm watching this series TV show called The Middle. It's like this family from like the central USA,
mm,
and this kid like dropped something in like the yard, and there was like the father and the grandfather, and the father got into his knees and started looking for the stuff with the kids, and the grandfather just says, Why are you looking with him? I would never do that for you." And the father looks at the grandfather and says, "Yes, exactly." you know
exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. That's why I'm doing it because you never did. Like
yeah.
you should have. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as like uh, spirituality or religion or I know a few of your guests have talked about like paranormal experiences they've had. Um,
Have you ever had anything like this, like seen
you know,
ghosts or aliens or anything, or had the impression to have
you
seen
know,
anything?
there has been a lot of times in my life where I would have experiences as I was falling asleep, and they scared the crap out of me. Um, and I would see what they call shadow people, and I would have like sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And so when I was younger, I kind of thought like, oh, is it ghosts or is it spirits or whatever? But
Mm-hmm.
as I got older, I just realized that I don't need a supernatural explanation just because I didn't understand something. And I think that, like, no offense to anyone out there, but I think that that is a lot of religious thinking is, I don't understand this, so I'm coming up with a supernatural explanation, you know? And it's like people used to look at the sun and say, I don't understand that. That is God. You know? And it's like,
at least the sun is real. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. I like that. You know, and it's like, it just, to me, it's kind of all the same thing. It's like, there's a lot I don't understand, and I don't need to come up with a supernatural explanation, you know? For the shadow people, I did a lot of reading, and I realized that, like, it has to do with your brain being in between sleep and wake, and, like, you know, I never knew until I researched that when you fall asleep, your brain kind of paralyzes your body for your safety. And sleep paralysis is when you wake up just enough so that you are aware, but not enough to release you from the paralysis. And it's scary when it happens. Then when
it happened to me,
yeah,
I thought it was a ghost too, and then I read about this, and but I also, you know, that's that's great. That's probably what it is, but it's a lot more comfortable believing that's just that, and not a ghost too, right? So
yeah.
You know, I don't believe in all that stuff, but I also prefer not to believe in it. In a way, you know. In some ways.
Well, see, in some ways, I feel like I don't know how I can believe in ghosts if I don't believe in God. Because if there's a God, there's an afterlife, which is where the ghosts come from. To me, they're related.
Well,
so
not necessarily,
Well,
I mean, there's cultures and theories that doesn't necessarily relate to each other, right? There was enemies before the concept of God as we know it, right?
Well, what I'm saying is an existence of God implies the existence of an afterlife or a life beyond death. Because that's what God is. God lives forever, right? And it's like,
God does, but not necessarily us. Like, we can be, there's, even though being atheism, one thing that attracts me of this kind of new stuff of spirituality is like, we are all God in a way, we're all consciousness. These are just our, like, we are not, this phrase that I love that Pete Holmes uses, that we are not material beings having a spiritual experience. We're like spiritual beings
having a
material experience. Like, we are all this consciousness, because I love this phrase, like, if I were you, I would be you. So if I was born where you were born and have everything that you have and raised as you, I would be you. So who really am I? I'm all the stuff that I have, that I carry around, it's me. I like the stuff. It's just because of the circumstance that I was kind of born. But there's what is really me. Like, we're all, even that stuff like religion, it's not real for me, but it can be for other person if that affects them in a way. So I don't know. I like this kind of, we're all trying our best here. We're all having this experience. We're all and we're all God in a way. Like, we're the way the universe is experiencing itself and trying to learn from itself. And I don't know.
Yeah, well, actually, that's pretty much exactly my explanation for, like, life and creation and what we call spirituality. Is my personal opinion is that there's no God and there's no afterlife, and there's no spirits or anything like that. What we have is an entire universe of material that used to be one thing. Then it separated and became many things. So if I pull a leaf off of a tree, you know, it's still a part of that tree. You know,
Yeah.
if I grind up a tree and turned it into a book, it's still a part of that tree. So to me, that's what we are. Is we are all just the same material spread
Yeah.
out and expressed in different ways. And
We're connected in a way, like this spiritual thing that
yes,
people say, "Oh, we are all connected,"
yeah,
and we are in a way.
it's,
Like we are all this.
yeah,
We are all stardust kind of
yeah, exactly.
place
Like
that
Carl
I love.
Sagan said, yeah,
Yeah.
like Carl Sagan said, we're all made of star stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I think that it makes sense that people would like believe in a higher power. And even though I don't believe in that, I believe in kind of a version of that, which is like, we don't, I don't believe that we can live forever, you know, because I don't believe in an afterlife. But what I do believe is when I die, my body turns into material, and in a few trillion years, that material will collapse back into a singularity and then explode again.
Yeah.
And then a few trillion years after that, something kind of sort of ish like me will exist somewhere in the universe, because the parts I'm made of are billions and billions of years old anyway. It's already
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
I'm here because that happened. So
And they are kind of eternal in a way, right? We're not going
exactly,
away. Yeah.
exactly, and in a way, it is reincarnation, you know, and in a way,
Yeah.
it is everlasting life. But
Yeah.
I think that what people mistakenly kind of attach to that is consciousness. You know, they think that like if I die and go to heaven, like my consciousness survives and goes to a better place. And I think that no, I think that what happens is the materials survive and become something new, but our consciousness, our sense of self, does not travel with it. And to me, that kind of explains like heaven and ghosts and angels, and you
Yeah.
know, like it's more it's more like the material that to me is forever. And
That's
if
true.
we
Yeah.
already know that our bodies are made up of materials that literally came from dead stars, then that means I am billions of years old. You know,
That's very spiritual by itself in a way,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
to me, it's the difference, I guess, between like spiritual and religious, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ascribing a personality to like God. Like, okay, for instance, what most people would say is God, I think is just the universe.
Yes, it is.
And
Like
and
God is the name we gave to the thing we throw a blanket over to
yes,
give it a name. The
yes,
mysteries of
yes,
universe that we can identify. So it's the name of the blanket. The blanket's God. We throw over there. Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
God.
I like that. Yeah.
What's behind that? I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
kind of it's like if we are all basically just parts of a whole, then that means that there's really only one being or creature. You
yeah,
know, it would be like the cells of my body arguing over whether or not Billy exists. You know, it's like
yeah,
we are a part of Billy. You know,
yeah,
my heart cells and my brain cells and my blood cells, like they are Billy, just like
yeah.
I am the universe. I'm just an incredibly, 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 incredibly small part of it.
Yeah. It's
And
it's almost as if you're all the same, and everybody is just a different version of yourself
kind
in
of,
the
yeah,
multiverse kind
yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it's like it's kind of scary, but also kind of beautiful at the same time. And
mm-hmm.
I think that's actually a good description of the universe, is scary but beautiful, you know?
Yeah,
And um, I think that if there is some kind of a consciousness like beyond us, like the oldest creatures in existence would be black holes. And if I had a cool story idea, which is, what if there was a sentient black hole? Because it would be so old that it would see everything differently, and it would see my entire planet, it would see my entire galaxy as like one of its blood cells,
Yeah.
and it makes a cool perspective. And then I actually had this story about like different sentient black holes fighting, and then like the trillions of planets that get caught in their wake.
Black hole wars.
Yeah, exactly. Which also could be a porno title, so be careful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that sums up my
great.
version of spirituality,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being we're getting to the end of the show, almost 2 hours. So I would like to ask you just some more few whimsical questions to get to know a little bit better than like personality and stuff that you like. So, if you could dream about anything, like you could control your dreams, what would you dream about?
I would probably fly. I know that sounds kind of boring, but I would love to be like, I would love to be like a bird,
I'll also ask you if you could have any superpower, what superpower would you have? So,
probably flight.
Would be,
or the power to have me and my family live forever in good health. Because that's, to me, that's kind of all that matters. I've honestly had like a preoccupation with death since I was like very young. It's been on my mind since I was very young, so it kind of shapes a lot of my thinking.
Get that, yeah. But I mean,
it's gonna happen.
If life is eternal, won't like those moments we value so much kind of lose value too? Like like we said, like we have to take advantage of those moments for kids because they will get older and leave their house and not be there anymore. If things were eternal, I don't know, would we value those things as much as we're trying to value now? We're also trying to value now, and we have a hard time sometimes giving that enough priority.
Yeah. I think that I think in the grand cosmic scheme of things, nothing we do matters at all. I think that's true. It's just we're too small. Yeah. We're just too small.
But it matters to us too, right?
Okay, exactly, because I think our universe is eternal, but our consciousness is not. So, in the grand scheme of things, nothing matters because I'm too small. But on the small scale, since this is the only trip I'm going to get, everything matters to me. So it's kind of like I try to keep those two perspectives in my head, where don't get too upset about things because do you really think they care on Mars that your car broke down, or that someone was rude to you at the bank, like, no.
And the world is not conspiring against you, like sometimes everything's going wrong and we think about well, I have so much bad luck, I'm cursed. Not really, like we are that insignificant, like the universe doesn't care really that much.
And it's like it's like nothing really matters because we're just too small. But since these few decades are all I have of my consciousness, then it matters a lot how I spend that short time to me. So that's kind of how I approach it. It's like, don't worry about the inconveniences because they're not going to matter, but spend a lot of time worrying about the happy things because they're going to be gone real soon. So
and the last question has a lot to do about this. Is, do you remember the last time you felt really happy and just grateful for being here and being alive? and everything. And if you do, can you share with us when was that and what was happening?
Actually, it's funny that we were talking about not remembering dreams because, like, probably just like a week or two ago, I had a dream and I got woken up like in the middle of, in the middle of it, so I remember it. And it was so simple, but it was so beautiful that I actually was crying when I woke up. And it was just, I was with a crowd of people, and I don't remember who they were, but I know we were kind of familiar. And we walked out into this place, and it was just like a beautiful field with like trees and butterflies and everything. And that moment made me so happy to be able to experience so much beauty that, I don't know, it filled me with a lot of contentment. And that's when I woke up. I remember in the dream I was like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And then something woke me up. And so I was able to awaken with that feeling of being in the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
And it was my bedroom in the middle of the night, but it still carried over. And I thought, this world, man, this world is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. So be happy.
Yeah.
Be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to notice sometimes, but it is an exercise you can practice, right? Like, as I said, like stopping and saying like, what from this angle I can see, like a small thing that calls my attention, and you can see it as beautiful. It's a good exercise for the mind, I think, too. Billy, thank you, so much for coming here and sharing your experiences, your life, your wisdom, and in your journey. And do you have any last messages for the wonderful weirdos that are listening to us?
Be kind, tell the truth, work hard. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. And can you take us out just saying the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to ko-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.